throughout his whole life, he fought the NCAA and eventually won a $2.5 million settlement from the NCAA.
Which not a bad little settlement.
No, they settled out of court because they were just hired. He countersued them and felt that they were being unfair. Part of that lawsuit had to deal with the head investigator at the time, a guy named David Burst, who referred to Tark, who was Armenian when he was alive, Armenian, and referred to him as a dirty rug merchant a number of times to other coaches. And so other coaches were willing to take the stand to say, here's what he said. They had a vendetta against him. They sent most of their investigators were assigned to chase UNLV basketball, one sport, in one team, in one sport, in one city that they were after. So, I certainly support Tark's contention that he had during his days that the NCAA was out to get him. And that dates back to the Long Beach days when Jerry Tarkanian wrote a couple of articles in a Long Beach newspaper, the Long Beach Press-Telegram, I believe, and he had a weekly column there. And he was frustrated seeing UCLA with John Wooden violating numerous NCAA rules, which is a matter of record. It happened.
Okay.
They had a guy named Sam Gilbert who was their team owner, and Sam Gilbert was supplying anything and everything he could to the players at the time, and that's a
of course
that's a matter of history that happened. Whether John Wooden knew or not is one of the other questions certainly in this. And John Wooden, it never got stuck on John Wooden. So Tark writes, and he was also frustrated that here he is at Long Beach State, small school right there in Southern California. He's a little frustrated that he's not getting a game. He wants to play UCLA. They won't play him. And he's got a very good basketball team there that's rising up out of there. And he sees UCLA getting all of these extra benefits, cars, apartments, players. I paid for abortions for players, for girlfriends.
Wow.
For players. And LA Times did a major expose on this. So Tark said, and in jest, but he was serious about it, he said, no, it's sort of crazy that UCLA is just sitting right up the street breaking every NCAA rule in the book, but the NCAA will put Southwest Tech State U on 3 years probation for a dinner that was paid for a kid somewhere. So he was talking about the unfair enforcement of NCAA rules.
Based upon the type of school that is breaking those rules.
Yes, and UCLA was at that point. I was a big UCLA fan as a kid, so that was the Gail Goodrich, Lou Alcindor, go down the list of all the great players, Lynn Shackelford, all the great players that played at UCLA.
So he makes a few complaints.
Back in the day. So he makes a couple complaints. The NCAA fires a letter back after his first article that says unfair enforcement. They're going after little schools and putting them on 3 years probation while they're watching UCLA do its thing and continue to win championships. And so they sent a letter to Tark and the Long Beach president and said, I don't know if you guys think you're entitled to, you're sort of a small school. We can take and put you on probation. Basically threatened him and said, don't write another column.
Wow.
Oh, he wrote another column. That was Tark. He was a fighter. He was going to say it. He would say it and tell it like it is. He wrote another column and then shortly after that, he went to UNLV and this is early 70s now. So he comes to UNLV. They end up putting Long Beach State. The NCAA then investigates Long Beach State and puts him on 2 years probation.
Jeez.
Lute Olson took over for Tark at the late coach from Arizona. Took over for Tark at Long Beach State. So Tark comes here. So the NCAA chases him here from Long Beach to Vegas, catches him from their point of view, and puts him on 2 years probation in 77.
Catches him for what, though?
Yeah, that whole case. What was interesting is that they claimed in their investigations and interviews that they did with athletes that athletes admitted to taking a plane ride to go home for a funeral.
Okay,
and that was paid for by a coach. Do I think that could have happened? Absolutely, I think that could have happened.
Just think, in today's world, that would be like, no big deal after the Louisville case.
After the Louisville case. But they said in the interviews that were never taped, that were just the recollections of the person doing the interview. Now remember, David Burst, the guy who called him the rug merchant, is the guy running the whole show here, and he's already got this negative attitude because he's fought the NCAA and he's pointed out the hypocrisy of UCLA. So so they go after him, and Tark complains and says, wait a second, none of your interviews were taped. My players never said that. The players then signed affidavits saying we never said that we got free this, free that, free that. They've got no evidence against us. So it became he said against the NCAA investigator and the player.
Wow.
And the player said they never said some of those things. And the NCAA said, well, we say that you did. And here's you're going on 2 years probation. You got to fire the coach.
You got to love sports investigations.
Oh yes.
You know
Well, and what Tark did there was, and you can go back. There's a documentary, and I love it because I'm part of it. It's a documentary on HBO. They run every March Madness on the Runnin' Rebels that documents all of this and what happened here, and takes this case back and talks about the eventual $2.5 million settlement, the check that Tark got from the NCAA. Anyway, what it did was what Tark did was change the NCAA's investigative methods. He then was able to take the investigative methods, and they changed everything. After they started, amazing! They started recording some of their interviews. They started doing what you normally would do if you were doing an investigation. A real investigation. So they conducted investigations properly, and the rest of the NCAA can thank Jerry Tarkanian for fighting that battle, as he did.
Yep. Now, what's really interesting, like obviously with the sports, all the sports investigations where they kind of they don't do their due diligence. Even just a few years ago, and I just mentioned it a few seconds ago with the Tom Brady case a few years back with the Deflategate, when he was suspended, the actual ruling that came down for Tom Brady was more likely than not had knowledge of a deflation going on. More likely than not had knowledge.
So 52%?
So like,
or 85%?
I mean that's such a ridiculous statement. It'd be the equivalent of like, hey, if I'm sitting in the locker room and one of the players comes in and I know he takes HGH, you could tell, or maybe I've seen it. Well, does that incriminate me? More likely than not had knowledge of. It's the same exact thing. I mean, if one guy comes in yoked out where he's bench pressing cars, well, he's probably on steroids. And if I knew about it, am I going to get in trouble? Should I get suspended? The whole sports investigation world is just atrocious how they go and do things. The NFL obviously number one on that list of how they go about their investigations. The FUBAR that happened with Adrian Peterson, then DeRay Rice, then the Tom Brady crap. Now with Ezekiel Elliott with his 6-game suspension over hearsay that was thrown out in a court of law, and he gets a 6-game suspension. I mean, it's just unreal how. How the NFL kind of process works. Speaking of suspensions, though, have you heard about Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie from the New York Giants?
No, I haven't heard.
So he has been suspended.
The Giants, but leave the Giants alone.
So
they haven't won a game yet.
They have not won a game. They also lost 2 of their star receivers, a few other people. Yeah. I mean, they are just falling apart. Literally, New York Giants. The train, the wheels are coming off the train. It is. We are getting derailed. Not we, but they.
Yes, yeah.
Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie goes in, ends up getting into a huge fight with the the coach of the team, McDoo. So, gets in a huge fight, ends up getting suspended. He ends up walking out of the facility. He leaves the facility, doesn't practice, gets suspended. I believe it was McDoo that actually just put it on Twitter that said. DRC walks out of facility, gets suspended. That's it. Like, that was how we found out. Well, he shows back up at the facility today, still suspended. So he just thought you could just come back and pretend you didn't just walk out
from a suspension. I didn't. Yeah. So no, not me. No. The trouble they've got certainly in all sorts of problems. I mean, maybe Victor Cruz. Maybe they can get Victor Cruz to come back. What do you think?
Yeah,
they might need him. At some point. He's sitting there doing nothing right now.
Like I said, Ocho Cinco did volunteer to come back out of retirement. I
suggested Megatron.
You suggested Megatron. Might as well bring Randy Moss back in. He's probably got something left in the tank. Todd Gurley from the LA Rams.
They're LA.
He is begging Los Angeles fans to come to Rams home games. So he is begging for fans.
Well, and that's an interesting story right there. And we put that, now that we're talking NFL, let's jump into this. And it's on our website. You can see the article, a link to the article of the story from, and I'm going to pull it up here. Our website is the VegasSportscast.com. And nobody else had the VegasSportscast.com. It was easy to get. How do you like that?
Yeah,
See, that's why we are the number one sportscast podcast.
Because we are the.
And we have everybody Vegas. Else can be impersonators and do whatever they want to do.
Speaking of impersonators, I'll come back to that story in a second.
Okay, but here's the story on California's breakup with the NFL. California's breakup with the NFL out of the Wall Street Journal this past week. And there's a picture of the stands that we've got in there at a San Francisco game, Levi Stadium. And we've got 4 teams in California. And as it says, it starts out talking about the Los Angeles from San Diego Chargers. 27,000 seat stadium they've got there. Tiny 27,000 seat stadium. Named for a ticket resale company. StubHub.
Yep.
And they can't sell tickets. Okay. They've struggled to fill only 27,000 seats. The NFL has a rule of a minimum of 50,000 seats for a regular season game. They bypassed that rule so that the Chargers could move to L.A., waiting for the big spaceship to be built, I think in 2019. Anyway, so the Chargers, and nobody really expects them to do real well in L.A., but they're there. They're giving it a shot. They're doing it, but it is embarrassing for the NFL to see that. The Rams are down 20,000 tickets per game, seats per game sold from last season, and they're a much better team this year. When you look at it, the Rams are a much better team than they were last year. They're entertaining, at least. They're doing some things. So they are. So that's an issue right there, and they're in the big Coliseum.
Oh, yeah.
49ers, crappy team, but still nobody showing up at Levi Stadium, fighting traffic and all that sort of stuff to get to that stadium. And the Raiders, we know their story here in Vegas. I mean, they're leaving.
They are leaving, and right now, obviously, if you've been following the news, Northern California is unreal right now with those fires.
Oh, the fires.
The fires that are going on.
That's horrible.
They say that with the fires going on, there is a football field size of land that is getting burnt to the ground every 3 seconds.
Whoa.
Football size.
Every 3 seconds.
Yeah, football field size every 3 seconds. It is unbelievable. The fire covered 4 miles in about 10 minutes as it just pushed up the mountain and stuff. So
all that dry country, the vineyards, all of that stuff. By the way, and I don't want to. Yes, I do want to distract from that because we can talk about that in a moment. But we're watching the baseball game here as well because we've got an NFL game and a baseball game going on right now. Cubs and the Nats, 9-6 right now, bottom of the 7th inning, bases loaded, 1 out, Bryce Harper at the plate. You can't get a more dramatic situation than this unless it were the bottom of the 9th.
Yep. That's what I was about to say. Well, if it were the bottom of the 9th, it'd be a little bit more dramatic. But
this is about as dramatic as it gets.
This has been a back-and-forth game. Obviously, Chicago took the early lead, but Washington's continued to battle back and keep it a close game. Chicago keeps on just tacking on runs, playing a lot of small ball. You're seeing some bunts. You're seeing we had a score on a wild pitch earlier in the game. So a lot of small ball. I think only one of those runs was from a home run. So it's been a back and forth game though, pretty exciting.
And this is winner takes all, or at least moves on to take on the Dodgers, who are sitting at my Dodgers that are sitting there resting, waiting. And they had the best record in the majors this last year, and they disposed of Arizona in 3 games. So they got plenty of time sitting there, and Kershaw's resting up, getting ready for whoever wins this game tonight. Again, we'll keep you posted. We got one eye on Harper here at the plate. 9-6 Cubs, bases loaded, bottom of 7, 1 out, Harper at the plate.
It's.
This is why this. He crushes one to center field. Let's see. He got under it. He got under it. Right. A sac fly, but not what you wanted Harper to do.
So, sac fly to center field, and 1 run comes in from third, and looks like it's 9-8. So, How about that?
Yeah, so we've got 9-7.
9-7.
9-7, the score right now. So, and the bottom of the 7th, so a lot of baseball to be played here. And in the American League, you've got, let's see, Yankees. How about those Yankees?
So Yankees squeak by with a wild card win over Minnesota. Go in and take out Cleveland. However, I think they're going to have a rough time with Houston. Houston is favored in this series. The only time that the Yankees and Houston have played each other in the